Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Am I talking about the chicken, the rooster, the cockatrice, the cockatrice? Oh my god, it could be anything, couldn't it? So I'm going to go cockatrice. This is a very strange looking creature. Should you be terrified by a creature like this? It looks basically like a very sick chicken. It looks like a very sick chicken, but it's not a very sick chicken. It's actually got a feature and ability that's quite terrifying in many respects, and frankly I am surprised that many people have not been more terrified by actually having to deal with this creature. So today is the day that we go and we unravel the secrets of our cockatrice. The cockatrice is an eerie, repulsive hybrid of a lizard, a cock, and a bat. It's infamous for its ability to turn flesh to stone, and the cockatrice is feared by anybody who knows about this monster. The cockatrice is about the size of a large goose or turkey and has the head and body of a rooster, with two bat-like wings and a long tail of a lizard tipped with a few feathers. Those feathers are important. A cockatrice's feathers are golden brown, its beak is yellow, its tail is green, and its wings are grey. The cockatrice's wattles or comb and eyes are bright red. Females, which are much rarer than the male cockatrice, differ only in that they have no wattles or comb. That's the only difference. So what is the biology of this creature? Well, as it happens, we know a little bit, but actually not that much. The average cockatrice has a lifespan of between 5 and 10 years, just like a chicken, but can live as long as 30 years. Although a cockatrice has bat wings, they're not equipped with their bone structure for sustained flight, so they fly fairly quickly, but not very well for very long. Unlike lizards, the cockatrice can't sacrifice its tail and regrow a new tail as an escape method. The venom of the cockatrice is released by saliva glands in the mouth that lower blood pressure, stop the nerves sending signals to the muscles, and prevent blood clotting, which usually results in paralysis and or death. The droppings of the cockatrice can indicate the gender of the monster because the male poop will have the shape of the letter J, while the female's is more like a spiraled shape. Cockatrice have small holes in the head located behind the ears that house the ear structure, so they have no external ear structure whatsoever, that can pinpoint sound made a mile away, so their hearing is very, very good. Because the eyes of the cockatrice are positioned on the side of the head rather than in front of the head, they have a 270-degree field of vision, so they can see almost completely behind them. The cockatrice retina contains 7 types of photoreceptors, which consist of double rods and double cones. This is quite unusual. This gives the creature exceptional vision. There is speculation that from some sages that the cockatrice can actually see an ultraviolet radiation, any kind of ultraviolet radiation, that particular wavelength that it can actually pick up. Now the brain of a cockatrice is the size of a pea, and it's particularly stupid as a creature, not so much because of its brain function, but due to the excessive aggressive instinct that it has that is hardwired into this little monster. That's actually what makes it quite stupid. It winds up being very impulsive as a creature. So how does combat look with a monster like this? Well, the cockatrice will fiercely attack anything which it considers to be a threat to itself or its lair. When attacking, the cockatrice will attempt to grapple the foe, which it's not very good at, and then touch any kind of exposed flesh, turning it to stone. Flocks of cockatrice will do their utmost to overwhelm and confuse their opponents, and they will sometimes fly directly into the face of their victim. While the fatal touch of the cockatrice beak will affect victims flesh, it will also affect them if they tap into clothing or leather or fabric. Primarily because the beak is sharp enough to probably penetrate the clothing and that fabric. But it will not work on metal armour. So any kind of metal it can't get through. That's too hard. The cockatrice's petrifying touch will, however, extend into the ethereal plane. Much to your surprise, I'm thinking, look, so in other words, you can actually petrify a ghost or a entity that is ethereal in nature. Odd, but possible. The cockatrice is somewhat aware of the limits of its power, and by natural selection it has taught itself to strike only the exposed flesh. So it knows that going for the exposed flesh is the best option. If large areas of an opponent's flesh are exposed, it should be assumed that the cockatrice will automatically touch or target that fleshy area. If the target is reasonably well armoured, then the cockatrice is very unlikely to significantly injure the victim and certainly not petrify them. If a cockatrice dies, its beak's petrification ability will end, except for the tail feathers that will always petrify on contact. And that is one of the things you've got to be careful with. The tail feathers are actually probably more dangerous than any other part of the cockatrice, particularly its beak. There's also speculation that just any kind of contact with the cockatrice will also petrify you. Now, the habitat and society of our cockatrice. What is that like? The cockatrice is immune to its own petrification powers, but spells and different creatures that also have petrifying powers will affect the cockatrice, so it can be turned to stone or petrified. The diet of your cockatrice or cockatrice consists of seeds, nuts, berries, flowers, insects, lizards, mice, frogs, snakes, small animals, and it's an omnivore, so it will eat a variety of different things. When a cockatrice hunts these creatures, the creature does not employ its power to petrify living things because it can't eat stone or petrified material. And it does this, and it can actually choose to turn off the petrification ability. The only part of the cockatrice that can't be turned off are the tail feathers at the end. Those tail feathers are the only thing that can't be turned off. Many cockatrice are distinguished from other avians by its unusual habits and its nasty temperament. It's got a very bad temper. Since female cockatrice are extremely rare, they are the dominant sex and often will have more than one male mate. In fact, male cockatrice fight or strut for the privilege of joining a female's harem. So if you were thinking that it would be the males that have the harem, no, the females have the harem. There's going to be a lot of males surrounding just one female. Those mated cockatrice groups usually build their nests in caves deep within the ground. Nest sites are usually permanent, and the cockatrice consistently seeks to decorate its nest with or line it with shiny objects such as stones and gems. This is to indicate its prestige and its importance within the hierarchy of its own flock. There is only a 25% chance that any given cockatrice egg will hatch, and those fertile that do hatch, that are actually fertile and hatch, take within 11 to 12, possibly 19 days. So within the span of about 11 to 19 days, it will hatch. The young cockatrice reach maturity and full power usually within about 6 months. Once the cockatrice achieves adulthood, the hatchlings are driven away from the nesting site by the parents, so they have to find their own way. So large groups of cockatrice encountered frequently will be the young that have been driven out of the nest and have temporarily united for survival. A communal approach to incubation of cockatrice eggs is adopted, and it is taken based on the pecking order established within the flock. So that means just like a flock of chickens, there's usually a pecking order that is established, like who's the most important, who's in charge, and who is not. And the same thing occurs within a cockatrice community. Now, the ecology of the cockatrice, they thrive in the wilderness. That's their home. That's where they really do thrive. The petrification power of the cockatrice makes it immune to most predators, and it enables it to compete with other birds for food very easily. So there's really no predator that will go after the cockatrice. The feathers of the cockatrice are prized by certain wizards, as many magical scrolls must be inscribed with pens made from quills from the feathers of a cockatrice, which presents its own problems because, of course, remember, some of those feathers can wind up causing problems for you. So you've got to very carefully wrap them in such a way that you don't wind up making contact with the thing. Many people also seek out the unhatched eggs or even the live cockatrice as unusual pets or guardians. It's not unusual to use them like a guard dog. A cockatrice can be sold for, or an adult one, can be sold for between 500 to 1,000 gold pieces on the black market. And if you were looking for, say, a cockatrice egg that is fertile and not infertile, then you're probably looking for, it's a price going to be about 300 to 600 gold pieces each. So it's quite expensive to actually get hold of these. So if you wanted to sell them, you could. Now, how to incorporate the cockatrice into a Dungeons and Dragons adventure? How do you go about doing that? I've got a bunch of different ideas that I'm going to suggest to you. You don't have to like all of them. Take the ones that you like and leave the ones that you don't. A cockatrice could serve as a dangerous animal companion or a pet for a player character if you can convince the player to do this. Eating the cooked eggs of a cockatrice provides, say, temporary improvement to your armor class. The exotic cockatrice cuisine cookbook. You've got a new book out on the market. It's gone to the top of the pops. It's the top seller, and it's the exotic cockatrice cuisine cookbook with different recipes published in, say, a major city that's just come out. You could have a rebel cockatrice militarize a flock of domesticated chickens to escape their hen house if you wanted to, or the chicken farm they're on. A farm can have a rooster that is in fact a cockatrice that crows early in the morning, but also keeps away the predators so that the other chickens can actually do their thing, and rather than getting eaten by foxes and various other creatures. A local mountain dwarf could operate a cockatrice farm to sell the parts for inflated prices. So you could actually have a farm operated by a mountain dwarf. What about a cockatrice that predicts the changing seasons? A little bit like the Groundhog Day movie. You could have a gnome that creates a clockwork cockatrice robot as a weapon of war if you're wanting to militarize it. You could have a small town is swarmed by a flood of cockatrice that terrorize the locals. A little bit like the Alfred Hitchcock movie The Birds, which is a very good movie, by the way. Miners might release crates of these cockatrice into dungeons and mines to turn the threatened subterranean monsters found there to stone statues, rather than having to fight them off. Right, okay, we find a monster while we're trying to dig into the ground and find minerals and rare ores and so forth. Don't need to fight it. You get out your crate, you open the crate, let the cockatrice out and run for it, and let the cockatrice deal with those creatures. You could have a Medusa keeping a small flock of cockatrice to create statues for her garden ornament shop if you wanted to. Only thing is that the Medusa can potentially turn the cockatrice into stone. So you might need to give your Medusa some sunglasses or some sort of protective glasses so that that vision doesn't turn them to stone. And of course, the other thing is the Medusa might need to be wearing plate armor. You could have elite boxing and martial arts training sessions that involve catching a live cockatrice without being transformed into a stone statue. Now, a little bit like the old Rocky movie. Now, I need to thank those people on the Dungeon Master Roundtable. When we talked about the cockatrice, they presented some very clever ideas. A character could be petrified. Now, this is probably the one thing that I want to nail right down. This is a really good one. If a character is petrified by a cockatrice, then having the party search for a cure, so it needs to be found to undo the effect of the petrification or stoning of that character. And they may need to seek out the fabled mandrake plant root to actually make a concoction that will change the form of their former colleague. So those are some ideas I thought I would present to you and see what you think. Now, how do you go about defeating the cockatrice? Well, wearing metal armor, and if you can wear full plate armor, even better, because the cockatrice beak can't transform metal into stone, and neither can the feathers at the end of the tail. Don't engage the cockatrice in close quarter melee weapons because of its petrification ability. Instead, targeting the cockatrice with short and long range projectile weapons and spells is probably the smartest thing to do if you're able to do so. And then running away from the cockatrice is also a very sensible strategy. You don't actually need to fight it. Why even risk it? Now, the publications and the origin of this creature are quite odd. The original biblical beast could petrify a victim with the cockatrice's gaze, with its touch, and with its breath. So it had really bad breath as well. And it appeared more like a dragon in form than a chicken or rooster. The basilisk and the cockatrice have been used interchangeably over time, probably because of their similar petrification ability. And there may have been some confusion about whether we were dealing with something that is a lizard-like creature like the basilisk or a snake, or are we dealing with something that's more like a chicken. Now, the original Dungeons & Dragons set in 1974 had the cockatrice in it. The Monster Manual for First Ed Edition in 1977 also had this creature. We get a monstrous manual in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Ed Edition in 1993, which actually talks about the cockatrice again. It showed up again in the Monster Manual for version 3 in 2000. And then it didn't appear in, I think, yes, that's right, it did appear in the Monster Manual for 3.5 in 2003. And then we get the Monster Manual number 2 for 4th Ed Edition, and that appeared in 2009. And then it showed up again finally in the Monster Manual for 5e in 2014. So it's been around a very long time. It's a cool monster. It presents a lot of potential story ideas and concepts that you can utilize that extend beyond we just had a fight with a chicken-like creature. Now, if you have any questions about the cockatrice or cockatrice, however you want to say it, if you have any feedback you would like to provide, use the comments section. And thank you for watching my video. And hey, till next time, 20s, keep rolling those 20s.